Bugs and Yellow Jackets. Welcome to this Friday's episode of Author Reads here on Fae Productions. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly. And before we jump into the things today, I just want to say first, wherever you are watching from, please hit the like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want to get notifications about our future shows. We do 3 shows a week. So if you want to be abreast of those, please do that. And then also, if you happen to be watching from Facebook, please go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and allow the permissions to StreamYard so that we can see your name in the chat, because otherwise everybody looks like a Facebook user unless StreamYard can connect to Facebook, and you have to go and do that at this link right here. It's just a real quick, one little clicky thing. So, and then also, I want to remind everybody that you have until the 15th, so that gives you 6 more days. I can do math. That gives you 6 more days to go and fill out the link here. It's also in the low bar and in the description. We are having a Cyber Samhain here on the channel on October 31st. So we have a whole lineup of things for several hours on that evening, because so many people can't trick or treat, and who wants to just, sit at home alone in sadness, right? So we're doing a candy exchange, and then we will be here for several hours and inviting our patrons to come join us on the live stream, etc. And if you want to sign up to be in that candy exchange, it's totally free. It's just like a secret Santa kind of a thing, except for it's the Tooth Fairy, the secret Tooth Fairy, and the secret Sweet Tooth Fairy. So that is the link. It's tinyurl.com/Cyber Samhain. And and the last thing before we jump into it is today's sponsor, who is Eclectics Marketplace. I have that spelled wrong, a little typo though. It's Eclectics with an S Marketplace, and I really want to give a shout out to them and thank them. They are your resource for all things Renaissance, medieval, fantasy, Celtic, and so much more. The Eclectics Marketplace is a website that is a free-to-use index of listings for handmade crafters, performers, service providers, guilds, events, etc. So if you on their website, if you're looking, you can search their vendors, you can search the products and find your favorite performers, look for events that are in your area. All of these things are compiled in this one place for you to go through and look. And if you happen to be a crafter, performer, or other behind the scenes type of person related to fairs, festivals, handmade markets, etc. They do have you can become a member of their website and get your listing up there. They have a really simple application process. There is a free listing option, and then they also have an upgraded listing option with more pictures, etc. But it's normally $30 a year. Right now, it is free because of COVID. And so you can get a 1-year free listing. I would suggest going and doing that. Why not take up on something that's free, right? So go check them out, whether or not you're looking for a vendor or you want to be listed on their page. It is a great resource. So thank you so much. All of their information also is in the low bar as well in the descriptions. So with all of that said and out of the way, we can get to today's author. Hello, Bluecole. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Lolly. How are you? It's so good to be here.
I am doing very well. I'm excited. I'm excited to be back. Actually, we had a whole weekend off last weekend because we had a camp out, a little mini camp out that we went to where everybody could be nice and safe. And so that meant no shows, and so now we're getting back into the swing of things, and that feels good, right? So I'm like, I'm up and ready and good, and so and it's
good. I can't wait. I'm glad I was your first one after you got back.
You are indeed, and so
all the positive energy.
Well, yes, and also, so I'm gonna let you introduce yourself here to everybody, but also your genre here is perfect for kicking off the month of October. So
good,
right? If you will, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're writing here, and tell to the audience, please.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Hey, everybody. My name is Bluecole. I am a genre writer who writes a lot of science fiction, fantasy, weird stuff, weird fiction. I like to mash up my genres because vanilla is just boring. You want to add different stuff to it. I will be reading today and talking about my newest work, Elsewhere, which is about a young girl who has to protect her brother from a group of feral humans.
Feral humans, like reavers or zombies, or
a little bit smarter, faster zombies like this. This is definitely my take on the zombie genre. I actually happen to live in this area that The Walking Dead is filmed. So I've had a lot of time to think about, and plan for zombies and what would I like as a zombie, you know, and while granted the walkers are cool and all that, ones and twosies, they're okay. You got to get a whole bunch of them together to really make a whole lot of harm.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because I like how certain shows, zombies all by themselves don't seem that scary, but if they're slow, when you get them in big groups. But the ones that I find super, super scary are the really fast ones. What was that?
Ooh, World War Z by Max Brooks. That's exactly what it was.
And I found those to be super terrifying because they were basically just berserkers, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, but I think that the Walking Dead style zombies, The Walking Dead has done a really good job of finding ways to make zombies that are slow like that fearful, mm-hmm. right?
Yes.
So yeah. What is it that you are going to be reading to us from here today?
So this is the actual opening scene in Elsewhere, which is available on Amazon, Kindle U.
There we go. Oh, wait. No,
I got the light. The Star Trek.
There we go.
Let's go. Anyway, you'll be able to see it in a minute here with the graphics that pop up. But my take on the zombies here was I wanted to do something different than what everybody else does. You know, they have the shambling brains type zombies, which is great. But I really look at it as what would humanity be if we stripped back our civilization? And that's what these scramblers are. There has been a solar event, and it has wiped the higher thought processes for 99% of the population. So you have humans that are, I mean, they're animals. I mean, we're all animals, but we just slap civilization on it and call it good. But it takes us back to our roots.
That sounds pretty. That is a very interesting take. I've never heard of a take like that. So I'm interested to. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have here for us. And I know also you've at least received one award for your works. Can you tell us about that a little bit before we jump in?
Well, I didn't win anything, but it was an honor to be nominated. I was nominated as the Georgia Author of the Year
nice.
Years ago for the 54th annual, and it was a great honor. And it was for Evil Upriver was my creature horror novel. That may come up later. It depends on how much we end up talking.
Are these a series or individual?
No. These are standalone. You know, because I read in so many different genres, I like to write in a bunch of different genres. So I haven't done what a lot of writers do, and that's write a series. A lot of writers like to plop into one world and work within that, but I like to jump around. So all of my novels are standalone. Now, I will say, though, that as you get into some of the later ones, as I have more of a back catalog, there are characters that have and can and will always reappear. And as I write and as I explore my own worlds, I'm able to say, hey, this actually takes place in this novel, or this short story is a part of a work that hadn't been finished yet, but I've got it conceptualized. So everything interconnects with everything else, just like it does in real life.
That is cool. A little Stephen King world over, like characters traversing between books, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah.
I actually like that. I feel like it's kind of little Easter eggs that you find, right? You're like, oh, this is the character from wherever. I like that. So.
Yeah, I do too. One of the best things I think he ever did was in Dolan's Cadillac, where the Cadillac goes into the hole, and the gangster, as he's being buried, calls out, "For the love of God, for the love of God." And of course, that comes from Edgar Allan Poe and The Cask of Amontillado, which is where a badass Frenchman puts somebody behind a brick wall, and as they're bricking it up, the guy goes, "For the love of God, for the love of God." So to see those kind of
gives me shivers.
oh yeah, okay. So and then, another neat thing about Edgar Allan Poe. I saw this Facebook reminded me of this. However many years ago today, he wrote the poem Annabel Lee. Today, October 9th in 1850, whatever.
Yeah. That
Maybe
is
listeners can fact check us. He released Annabel Lee.
Ooh, I love Edgar Allan Poe.
That's a good one. Okay, so let me wet my whistle for a second.
Yes, I will go ahead and so this is how this works today. Everybody out there who's watching, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn the screen over here to Blue and put myself on mute, but I will be in the chat comments. So if you guys have questions or anything that you would like to, comment during his reading, then please put those into the chat, and then I will ask them after he is done reading, and then at the end of the show we will have a giveaway for a copy of this book. So with that said, I don't think there's anything else. Well, I should say also, if you guys feel like being generous, you can tip Blue just by hitting the super chat there, and all the super chats go to the author. So without further ado, I bring to you Blue.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
All right. I am.
Abigail tapped her toes, watching her father. He was talking to Mom, discussing something about her job at the new hospital. Typical boring adult stuff. She glanced at her brother, Aaron, who is lost in a stack of baseball cards. Watching the servers move around the busy restaurant, she breathed in the smell of steaks floating with the peanut dust in the air. Okay, we're here. Can I open my present, please? Abigail asked. Tall for her age, she carried herself with the uneasy grace of someone caught between her childhood and approaching adulthood. Aaron looked up for a moment and returned to the baseball cards in his hands. As their mother spoke up, Aaron, put those away. Aaron rolled his eyes and dropped his hands below the table where they couldn't be seen. Nah, make her wait, he said. It's not quite time. Shouldn't we wait until cake and ice cream? Her father offered. Abigail's face fell, but she hadn't really expected a different response. She looked at the bag sitting at the end of the table, so close yet so far away. She sighed. Aaron still had his cards out, but Abigail wanted to show her parents she was responsible. She hoped a new smartphone was resting in the bag on the table, and she desperately wanted to find out. Not only did she not have a cell phone of her own, her parents insisted on seeing her be responsible and make good decisions before they gave her one, as if picking on her little brother wasn't a good decision. That's what sisters were for. Around them, the lights in the restaurant faded and then came back. Her parents shared a worried glance. What was that? Aaron asked. Don't you watch the news? Abigail asked at the same time. Her father said, it must be the sunspot activity. Her parents shared another concerned look. Her father worked in Atlanta in one of those big buildings. Abigail had heard them the previous night. Her mom had been trying to convince him to work from home until the solar storm passed. Her mom's job at the hospital was vital, so she wouldn't be able to stay home. School had been canceled and every television was turned to a news channel. The restaurant was filling up fast. Abigail and her family had waited outside before a table was finally ready. Despite the charged atmosphere, Abigail had been focused on this day for months. She was a teenager, finally. She was going to get a phone, finally. This was shaping up to be the best day ever. Cameron stepped into the cool night air and lit a smoke, his first of the evening. Approaching his 30th birthday caused him to look at his life in a different light. Fewer nights drinking, cutting down on cancer sticks, and looking for a job that didn't require nights and weekends. Hell, he'd even thought about going back to school. He wandered over to the catering truck. He and the general manager, Chuck, had worked together on and off for the last 15 years. A corporate party was scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, and Chuck wanted to have it prepped early. The expected dinner rush be damned. Almost there? Cameron asked the inside of the truck. Yeah, just about, Chuck answered. How are we inside? About 80% full. We're only 5 tickets deep on the line. What's the bottleneck? Chuck asked. With the restaurant at 80% of capacity, the line cook should have more than 5 tables waiting for the food to be cooked. Hostess Stan, Power Surge is messing with the seating system. Jeff has it handled. He's got rolls going out to the ones who are waiting. Think I should go check? Nah, most folks understand. We just got to watch out for the drunks. Don't let anyone run up a large bar tab, Cameron answered. Chuck laid the clipboard containing the order on one of the shelves inside the truck and pulled the rolling door closed. Latching it, he said, I guess I'll head in for a few minutes. We're mostly loaded anyway. Better you than me. The meat don't argue back. Cameron walked to his car and leaned against the hood. From his position, he could see the crowd waiting under the faux weathered boards on the front porch of the restaurant. A little girl, wearing a pink dress, maybe 5 or 6, shrilled, darting among the adults. Cameron grinned at her laughter and flicked his butt into the storm drain. He almost lit another cigarette before he remembered he was supposed to be cutting back. Tucking his cell phone into his pocket, he walked into the back door of the restaurant. He had a good crew inside, but on a Friday night, anything could happen. Abigail cut into her chicken carefully. The waitress had been in a hurry, practically dumping the plates on the table and running off. Aaron was pigging out, rib sauce covering his mouth. He smacked, gnawing meat from the bone, and Abigail thought, gross, like he's an animal. The lights blinked again, a quick on and off, and a roar filled her ears. The buzzing drove deep into her brain, spiking hard against her skull. Colors exploded in her eyes, the only things she could see. She heard a choking sound beside her, and she twitched. Her arms didn't want to obey her, and she couldn't breathe. Cameron was back on the line, his favorite pair of tongs in his hand. He was reaching for a steak weight when the lights blinked. A loud buzzing filled his ears, pain exploding behind his eyes. Cameron gasped, dropping the weight onto the grill. Damn, gonna burn something, and now I gotta get a new one. Cameron realized he was lying on the floor. His arms and legs wouldn't do what he wanted, and the colors bloomed again. When they cleared, he was looking under the massive grill, his eyes drawn to a lonely, escaped potato. Chuck's gonna shit himself when that thing starts smelling, he thought. Nothing stinks worse than a rotting potato. Abigail rolled in the booth and landed against Aaron. The restaurant was silent around her, and she felt something cold on her lap. Pushing herself up, she looked down. She had worn her newest shirt, a gift from her grandmother earlier in the evening. Now the shirt was covered in sweet tea, barbecue sauce, and mashed potatoes. A grunt beside her got her attention, and she looked at her brother. Aaron blinked, looking at her owlishly as if he had just awakened. What? He said. Abigail tried to stand up, but her legs wouldn't hold her. Mama, she said, holding onto the table, her voice plaintive and weak. Mama, I made a mess. This wasn't something a teenager should say. She sounded like a kid, like her baby brother. She ought to be embarrassed, but shock prevented it. Why was the room so quiet? Were they staring at her? Waiting to laugh? Another grunt came from Aaron, probably laughter. She looked at her parents and then at the room beyond her. Her parents were slumped over, her dad with his head back against the headrest, her mom against the wall. Their eyes were wide open, staring, and Abigail's first thought was that they were dead. A sound, the loudest she'd ever heard, was a scream. It took her a moment to realize she was the one screaming, and she made herself stop. Her throat felt ragged, strained, and she lunged against the table, trying to free herself. The silverware rattled loud against the thick ceramic plates, and she rebounded onto the bench. Her mother hitched in a breath and slowly, so slowly, blinked. Abigail looked at her brother, who looked back at her. "What's the matter?" "What's the matter?" she instinctively translated. Before kindergarten, Aaron suffered a speech impediment, and Abigail was one of the few who could understand him. Her eyes traveled around the restaurant, and she saw why it was totally silent. Every television was dark, and the diners were slumped over at every table. The lighting looked funny as well. The lights were only half as bright as they had been. Her legs finally listened to her mind, and she stood up, bits and pieces of her meal falling unnoticed to the floor. Aaron slid toward her and stopped. The silence in the room made other sensations overwhelming. The smell of peanuts and cooked food made her gorge rise, and the shadowed corners seemed deeper, darker, and could be hiding anything. "Ma," he said plaintively, and she realized he had seen their parents. Abigail leaned towards him, turning his face into her stomach, mindless of the barbecue sauce that stained her new shirt. Cradling his head, shushing him, she took his hand. Keeping his face covered, they slid out of the booth. When she could turn him away from the horrible vision of their parents, she moved her hands. Abigail took his hand and led him to another table out of sight of their booth. She sat him down and grabbed a napkin, spilling flatware across the table before she carefully wiped his face. It's okay. Not sure what's going on, but I'm here." "Abs?" he said in that little boy voice. Even though she hated the nickname, she didn't correct him. She pulled a baseball card from his pocket and put it in his hand. "Here, look at," she glanced at the card. "Look at Chipper and keep your head down. I'm going to check on Mom and Dad." Behind them, from the kitchen, came terrible curses. Abigail turned, putting Aaron behind her, and grabbed a fork. Cameron lay on the floor for a decade, maybe more, before he could get his body to respond. The scorching meat forced him to move. One didn't cook as long as he had and not react to the charged smell. "Where is everybody?" he thought, finding his tongs and pulling meat to the cool side of the grill. After the meat was off the flame, he noticed Leo, his food runner, lying on the floor beside the prep station. Beyond him, a pair of feet were splayed behind two fry cookers. Cameron's legs, which worked fine when prodded by the smell of burning meat, felt weak. He was holding onto the counter, and he walked over to find the feet belonged to Holly, a hostess. "What the hell? Damn it, get up, all of you!" Nobody moved. His legs were feeling stronger, and Cameron noticed the dining room seemed quiet. Still gripping the countertop, he made his way to the swinging doors. He hit the doors with a bang and stumbled into the dining room. Abigail held the fork in front of her as the man in the cook's whites stumbled out of the swinging doors. An untidy sprawl of bodies made him trip, and he landed with a meaty thump. She peeked around one of the columns as he stood back, looking around in shock. She watched him quietly as he stepped over people, muttering to himself. Whoever he was, he bent down, checking pulses. Near the front door, people were stacked 2 and 3 deep as they had fallen, blocking the entrance. He went behind the bar and circled around. He looked like he was walking funny, taking big steps and staggering on occasion. Abigail realized he was trying not to step on the people who had collapsed. Behind her, Aaron said, "Abs? Want Mama? Mama home?" She turned to shush him, but the man looked up. He took 2 giant steps, and Abigail thought, Red Rover, send the cooking man right over. Across the restaurant, she met his eyes and held the fork up. He was short, with a 2-day stubble and a long hair pulled back into a ponytail. "Are you okay?" he asked. Seeing the fork and the way she held it, he stopped. "Is anybody else awake over there?" Abigail didn't answer. "I'm going to try to call the police," he said. He walked back to the bar, climbed across, and picked up the phone. He started to dial a number, then jiggled the button. "Dead," he said, looking back at her. "I'm going outside to look around. Will you be okay?" Abigail didn't trust herself to speak, so she nodded. The man did his funny hopscotch walk across the floor and went through the swinging doors, where Abigail saw a flash of the kitchen. Once he was gone, she took Aaron's hand and pulled him to his feet. Let's go see if we can find some answers. Come on, Aaron. He grabbed her hand with fierceness, and they walked towards the swinging doors. She still held the fort, but didn't think it would help. Most of the people near her were still in their booths, so she walked quickly to the bar area and the doors leading into the kitchen. Outside was silent. On the highway that fronted the restaurant, Cameron heard the rev of an engine and a pop, and the silence took hold again. The sodium arc glow from the Walmart parking lot was gone, but it looked like the other sections of the divided highway still had electricity. Cameron walked around the front, finding another crowd of collapsed people. What the hell? He thought. The shakiness seemed to have left him, but he had a headache at the base of his skull. His thought process was slow, almost foggy, and he had to stay focused on what he was doing. Those kids. I need to go check on those kids. There was no way he was getting through the front door, so he backtracked to the kitchen entrance. In the crowd of people, a flash of pink stirred and groaned. The little girl, the boy and the little, the girl and little boy were moving toward the kitchen when he reappeared. They stopped and studied one another, but she no longer held the fork up. He stepped over bodies to a bar stool, but didn't sit. My name is Cameron, he said. Do you remember what happened? The girl shook her head. 1 minute we were eating, the next we were just like this. She rubbed the back of her head. Do you have a headache? He asked. She nodded. Me too. Right here? She nodded. Cameron pushed the button to turn on one of the televisions, but nothing happened. The dining room lights were being powered by the generator, but there was no telling how long they would last. He went into the kitchen and found the ancient radio plugged in above the dishwasher station. Usually set to gospel music, it produced nothing but static. The door to the kitchen moved and Cameron jumped, then saw the girl from the booth standing in the doorway. Can you check on my parents? She asked. Sure. The radio didn't work anyway, he told her. She crossed the restaurant and sat beside her brother, and Cameron went to the booth. The adults were slumped together, and Cameron checked their pulse and thumbed back their eyelids. Neither eye responded to the wash of light, and both of them had blown blood vessels in their left eyes. The father had a strange pattern beginning to form on his skin. His cheek was turning a vivid, patchy red with dark streaks. Cameron tried to smudge it with his thumb, but it wouldn't wipe away. They're still breathing, but I'm not getting any other responses, Cameron said. They're just out. What will we do? The girl asked. We can wait here until help comes. She nodded, looking over at her brother. Is he okay? Cameron asked. He just seems a little confused, she said. Aaron had a speech problem before we went to school and has come back. She shivered and held the food-covered shirt away from her. Do you want me to find something else for you to wear? I have a sweatshirt in my parents' car. Can you get it? Or walk with us to get it? The girl asked, looking uncertain and shifting from foot to foot. She followed Cameron to the kitchen door that led to the parking lot behind the restaurant. Before he opened it, he said, there's more people outside, everyone who is waiting on a table. I just wanted to warn you. She nodded and he pushed the door open. They walked around to the front of the restaurant and the girl pointing toward her parents' car. She led them to the car and then the girl opened the back door to retrieve the sweatshirt. When she didn't respond, he said it again. Abby, look. Cameron looked as the girl, Abby, searched inside the car. The laughing girl in the pink dress was crouched on all fours, her head down. Holy cow, it's another kid, Cameron said, stepping around the boy, who was frantically pulling on his sister's arm. Quit it, Aaron, I can't. Cameron didn't hear the rest of what she said as he moved to help the little girl. Hey, are you okay? His voice brought her head up and Cameron stopped in his tracks. The lower half of her face was covered in blood and she emitted a thin growl at him. On her hands, knees, and feet, she scrambled over the pile of bodies on all fours toward him. Cameron stopped, but the growls didn't. Still low down, the blood-covered child advanced another step, and Cameron stepped back. The growl slowed as Cameron retreated further. "Oh my God, what happened?" Abigail asked behind him. Cameron didn't take his eyes off the thing in front of him. "Just stay behind me." Cameron retreated further, and the growl stopped. The little girl warily watched them. She sniffed around the bodies and settled on her haunches to gnaw an arm that was sticking up. "What is she doing?" Abigail asked. "She's hungry." "They were waiting to eat," Cameron whispered, horrified. "We've got to get out of here. They will all be hungry." Reaching down behind him, he grabbed Abigail's arm. Turning, they formed a chain as they walked with the cars between themselves and whatever that was. Did we really just see that? As they emerged from behind the last car, the bloody girl snarled and swiveled to watch them. When they headed toward the restaurant, she continued with her grisly meal, but kept her eye on Cameron and his 2 new charges. "We need to get out of here," said as the little girl slid behind the building. "We can't leave our parents." "Do you want to stay here and wait for all of them to wake up?" "I don't want to leave, but we've got to get away from here." "How do we know you will be safer with you? You could be a perv or something." Cameron led them into the kitchen while watching the motionless forms on the floor. "Here," he said, picking up a 6-inch knife from the prep table. "Keep this with you. If I get pervy, whack away." Abigail carefully took the knife from him. "How will they know where to find us?" Cameron sighed. "We're all teenage girls like this." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. Flipping it open, he said, "Listen, Abs, I'm all—" "No," she said. "Abigail. Not Abs, not Abby, just Abigail." "Fine, here. Take it and write down my address. Put it in one of their pockets, and if everything returns to normal, they can come find you." The end.
All right. So that is the end of that. Now, did you have another selection that you wanted to read to us from?
Yes, but first I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the conventions that I frequent in the Atlanta area. Do you think we could do that for a moment? Okay, so
yes,
my home
absolutely.
convention is Jordan Con, which is a Wheel of Time science fiction and fantasy convention that is run in Atlanta. It's the 3rd weekend in April, typically every year. COVID threw us a curveball this year, but jordancon.org is my home convention, and we would love for everybody to come and check us out. There's several active Facebook groups, jordancon.org. Another favorite convention of mine here in Atlanta is Conjuration, which is a magical fantasy convention. Harry Potter. Yeah, it's a lot of blast. It's typically in November. Once again, COVID has thrown a curveball, but they have an active Facebook group as well. And then
now, are they going to be doing something similar to, I want to say, what Gen Con, I
probably
think, did,
that's what Jordan Con
online?
did this past April when they pulled that one together. But I believe Conjuration is going to be online as well. But one that is actually coming up this month in October is Monster Rama. Monsterrama.com. It is also based here in Atlanta, and I did some great panels about monsters and Dune. Even though it just got pushed back, we still did a Dune panel and had a lot of fun. We shall not fear another Dune adaptation.
I will not fear the Dune delay.
And then, of course, we come to find out, not a couple days later, they just come out and push it back. And I'm like, really? I was really looking forward to it.
I am too, to be honest. So tell me about these monster panels that you do. Is this related to your books somehow?
Well, because I tend to write in different genres, I have written a couple of creature horror novels, and it doesn't have to be a boogity monster to be scary. A lot of things can be terrifying and scary. So I try to find in my writing, it may not be a physical monster, your traditional monster sense, but I try to find the thing that scares the hell out of anybody and bring it to a novel.
So are these kind of your classic cryptozoological creatures like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or Mothman, or do you have something local? Where are you? Do you guys have the Ozark Devil down there? Is that
no? We're right outside of Atlanta, not too far from the city. We have a lot of the Swamp Thing type monsters down here, a cross between, I don't know, the swamp lizard and Bigfoot. You know, we
okay?
We do have a Bigfoot type thing that's floating around down here, but nobody ever gets a picture of it when they claim to see it. So go figure.
Okay, we do have a question for you. If you want to,
sure.
I don't know if you want to take it related to this particular book and then jump into the next thing that you want to read, or if you want to just take them all at the end.
No, we can go ahead and take it.
Okay, let's see. This one here. I'm looking. We have actually 3 of them that I see. So I really like this one. So it's kind of a twofer.
Okay.
So pull this up here. Do you look to your own phobias to find subject matter? And are your stories the products of nightmares, childhood experiences, or fantasies?
I do have a couple of stories that I have written that have been based off of a dream or something like that. But usually when I'm writing, I come up with a scenario, you know, to protect her brother from feral humans. And then I usually follow that trail to come up with a monster. Almost in every story, there will be slices of my real life. The restaurant that we were just in Elsewhere is a steakhouse that is in my hometown. And I can show you the booth that Abigail and her parents were sitting in. And I can show you the back parking lot where Cameron saw the little girl having her dinner. And actually Cameron is an actual cook at the restaurant. Cameron is a real person. He's a guy that I went to high school with.
That is so based off of real people.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot in my stuff that's based on that.
It's kind of the author's version of method acting, but more like method writing, where you actually have done the experience. Yeah, we had an author a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that he had been a stuntman in a previous life, or done some stunt work, and that he had everything that his characters had done in his books, he himself had also done, so that he would have the experience of being able to really write in those fine details. So I think that's kind of cool. Like, this is a real diner, a real place, you know, and just someday when your books are huge and famous, then your town will become one of those tourist spots where people want to go and sit, you know, in the actual diner that's described.
I've got, you know, one of the things that I pride myself on is writing Southern fiction, Southern literature. And for us, the locale and the place is as much of a character as a real person is. The weather, the humidity, the environment, the threat. It's as much of a character as a living, talking person. And as you go deeper into Elsewhere, you can see that the environment and the way that they try to survive and set themselves up are pulled directly from real life. The survivors in Elsewhere end up living in a parking deck in downtown Atlanta, which is actually which was actually the genesis of the novel. You know, I worked at the time in downtown Atlanta, and I drive into the parking deck every day, and I was like, you know what? This would be a damn good place to hole up for the apocalypse. I mean, the concrete walls are that thick, solid concrete.
Yeah.
Can't chew through concrete.
Nope.
And so from there, my mind kicked off and said, well, how would they live in the parking deck? And why would they live in the parking deck? And then what happens? And the whole story is about them getting elsewhere. They want to get out of Atlanta. They want to get free anywhere but here, elsewhere.
Elsewhere. So here's a question. If you could leave your readers with one legacy, what would it be?
What the hell was he thinking? I mean, literally, the hell were you thinking? You know, if I can do that, that really is, and I want it to be something that they think of afterwards, a month later, a year later, a decade later, and think of a little snippet of a story and go, I still remember that. Because when I look at all the writers that I enjoy and that I read, you know, those are the ones that I want to. That's what brings me back to their work, is knowing that they have those stories, and it's those little things that stay with you. And that's what I want to leave for the readers, is just a oh wow moment, you know.
So we actually only have 15 minutes left. That time went really fast, didn't it? It always does.
I talk a lot. I'm sorry, I can't help it.
No, that's what you're here for. That is what you're here for. No, I mean, it's perfect. So we do only have 15 minutes left, though. So I want to say to everybody watching right now is the time. If you would like to be entered to win a free copy of Elsewhere, please put your name into the comments right now. Now is the time to do that. Get your name down below, and I will put you onto the wheel of win that we will spin live here in a few minutes. Before we do that, though, I want to take the one last question that I saw there in the audience. Okay, there's two questions. Let's see. And we can take those and allow people time to enter their names while you're talking, answering the questions. So let's see. Let me see which one I like first here. This is kind of a fun one. Let's do this one first. Okay, from Gunther here. Do you ever come up with anything so wild that you scare yourself, or that it leaves you wondering where it came from?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been story ideas that I come up with, and I'm just, frankly, they just horrify me. And it's great to be creative, and it's great to have these thoughts that impact and leave an emotion. But there's some things that you don't want to tempt fate. You don't want.
Yes.
And I'm the father of 3 daughters. And usually it centers around something happening in my family. Very rarely is it anything happening to me. It's always something, you know, what if something happens to them? And it's, yes, I have. and frankly, it is terrifying.
That's the kind of nightmares that I have. Like, I have many scary dreams, but the real nightmares are the ones where things are happening to the people that I care about. Yes. And it's just, you know, you're running, or you're trying to fight for them, or you're trying to save them, or something, and it's terrifying. Those are the most terrifying for me, you know, or you can't get a hold of them, or something like that. So,
or something threatens them, or they have done something that threatens themselves or others, and that's scarier than any Hollywood zombie monster. What's the next question? Let's go to the other question.
Okay, so next, the last question that I have here, and if anybody wants to get questions in, now is the time to do it. Let's see. Okay, I see both of you, Jack and Famous Dana. I will get you guys onto the list for the wheel. And our question here is there anything you find particularly challenging in your writing?
Yes and no. Writing, for me, the act of it is very easy. I can sit down at my desk, and I can take my mind, and I can drop it into the character, and I'm off and going. The problem for me right now, especially in 2020, is just the time and the headspace to write. You know, I have a part-time job, and I have a family, and I have teenagers, and I have one in college, and it's just, there's lots and lots and lots going on. And it's just hard sometimes finding the headspace and the mental freedom to write, because it's not just sitting down and writing 1,000 words in an hour, which is what I like to do when I'm rolling and drafting fresh copy. It's the 2 or 3 hours of just noodling out the problem and being able to let my subconscious work on the story idea while my forebrain works on the in real life stuff that we all have to deal with. But if I can't give my subconscious the chance to write for me in between each of my actual sessions. It's so hard to do. So what I'm doing now is I'm on a massive month-long brainstorming binge, and I'm just literally writing down every single thought that I've got. And so it is, even though I'm not actually drafting fresh material, I'm coming up with ideas and stories and worlds and just all this stuff that's interconnected. And if I can just get a little bit of headspace, we'll have a heck of a good.
Those are the seeds, though. Those ideas are the seeds of something great to come. So
absolutely,
it's definitely worth saving those. And Famous Dana says here, doesn't have any questions, but it was neat listening to you, and she loves hearing the accents.
What accent?
What
I know. I can't help it. And the later we get into the evening, the more pronounced it becomes.
Okay, well, so we have pretty much reached that time. I don't see any more questions in the audience, so let me pull up our wheel. Now we're doing the drawing here. I'm just going to say one more time, folks out there, put your name into the comments if you would like to have a chance to win a copy of Elsewhere, which is what we were listening to just earlier. Now is the time. Comment with your names, and I am going to pull up the wheel right now, so that we can make sure everybody is entered into that. Here we go. And I see a comment here. So let's see. Oh, it's Dana giving us some cute laughs. Okay, so I think I've got everybody then here onto the list. And with that said, I'm going to count down from 3, 2, 1. I see no more names. So here we go. This is going to be our drawing list. Woohoo. All right. And
I want one of those. That's awesome.
Fancy.
Yeah.
And Famous Dana, you are the winner of today's drawing. Yes, well, thank you so much. Famous Dana is also one of our Patreon patrons, which if you guys want to be automatically entered into every single drawing that we do here on the channel, you can join our Patreon at any level. And the link for that is in the low bar. It's just patreon.com/fayeproductions, and you will automatically be entered. And so congratulations, Famous Dana. I will pass that information along to you here after the show so that you can get her a copy of her book. And we'll figure out how it is that she would like to receive that. So
absolutely.
So is there anything that you would like to say before we let you go this afternoon?
Just read widely, read well. If you want to find out more about me, you can look at there I am. Novels are up on Kindle Unlimited, Amazon, and but go out and order it through your local bookstore. We've got some copies that are available that are out there, and send them some business because everybody needs books, and bookstores get books.
Well, yes, and I did also see too, because I took a peek there at your website. You do have also just a couple of free samples there up as well of chapters, so people want to taste test, right?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
All right. Well, with that said, then I will bid you adieu this afternoon. Oh, I will say this: the one thing I always like to say at the end of shows, just to remind everybody, if you purchase one of Blue's books, please leave a review. They are incredibly important to indie authors. Yes. Do not forget to do that. And so, yes, with that said, happy Friday, everybody. We will be back with you here again on Sunday for Handmade Home Shopping at 4 p.m. Pacific. So please tune in to see this week's selection of vendors and their cool product. And with that said, I've got nothing else to say. Give us the likes and subscribes, and have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a good weekend. Enjoy it.